It has never costed more to live than right now, which by extension means it's never been more expensive to be broke. Let me tell you what I mean. The median wage in the US across all demographics combined is about $64,000 a year annually, which is about $52,000 after taxes. The cost of living in most parts of the United States is $2,900 to $4,700 a month in higher areas, which is $35,000 to $56,000 a year just to survive. You can see where the problem comes in here. The average age of a first-time homebuyer in the US is now 40 years old, which is insane compared to recent decades. Even as recent as 2022, the age was 33. Since mortgages are 30 years, this means people won't pay off their home until age 70 if they buy it at 40, which is crazy because the average life expectancy in the US is 77 years old. So clearly it's expensive to buy a home. So the answer should be to rent, right? So you would think. Apartments in metropolitan areas routinely go for $2,000 to $3,000 a month in more populated areas, which is basically the payment for a small house, but you'll never own your apartment. But people can't afford the difference. You may be saving $500 a month from renting, but you're losing money after 30 years, and apartments are much smaller than houses, so you'll be living in a cramped space the whole time. But what else does this apply to? Well, let's think about transportation. A used car is pretty cheap. Sure, it might need some maintenance, but that won't add up over time, right? Wrong. Used cars need maintenance far more often than new cars, and the repairs are often more expensive because it's harder to get outdated parts. Not to mention, the older a car gets, the worse its gas mileage becomes, and older cars just weren't machined with the same gas mileage efficiency as they are nowadays. This leads you to filling up more times per month, and with current gas prices at around $4.95 in the United States at time of posting, that price each time you fill up can certainly add up. Over 60% of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck, which means they absolutely need their car to get to work. So when your car needs to go into the shop, you have literally no pay because you're waiting for repairs and you're losing money because you can't work. On top of already having to pay for the repairs to your car, which can also add up over time. You're noticing a pattern now. And because you can't show up to work, you may get laid off or even fired for just not showing up. A used car only lasts for so many years as well. Even if you drive it into the ground, most used cars you'd be extremely lucky to get 6 to 10 years out of. New cars can easily last double that, which means they're paid off for the majority of their lifespan. New cars also resale for more when it's time to upgrade, so you're doing yourself a huge favor by buying new originally. Now let's talk about time. If you work your typical 9 to 5 job, you have to commute, obviously. The average commute in America is 27 minutes both ways, so that's almost an hour every single day just on the commute. And taking public transportation like city buses or taxi cabs can easily double that estimate. Factoring in the average miles per gallon and the average commute distance, it costs $5 a day with current gas prices just to drive to and from work, which is over $1,300 a year. Not to mention, most of the time you get an unpaid lunch break in the middle of your workday, which is another 30 minutes to an hour. This means that the average American is spending 2, 3, sometimes more than 3 hours either going to or being at work that they're not being paid for. Suddenly, your 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. just became an 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Let's compare these numbers to, say, a freelance digital artist working from home. He also has to start work at 9 and go till 5, but he really does only work from 9 to 5. He wakes up in the morning, eats his breakfast, does his routine, and walks over to his desk when he's ready to start work. His commute is 30 seconds. At some point in the middle of the day, he takes a break and eats his lunch. Maybe plays with his dog or says hi to the family. This means his lunchtime is actually valuable to him because he can completely unplug from work and do whatever he wants around the house. Clock strikes 5 and he calls it quits for the day. 7 hours of work, 7 hours of pay. Meanwhile, the 9 to 5 guy gets up at 8 and gets home at 6 and only got paid for 7 hours of work. You see where the divide is. It's even in the groceries. Oftentimes, working class people can't afford to buy in bulk, so they do their shopping after work every day and buy things in the regular packaging. This tacks on an additional 4 to 6 trips to the store per week compared to the freelancer going once on Sunday. This costs so much time. Even cooking is made more efficient and cheaper the more you make. You can spend 30 minutes a day making dinner every night, or you could spend an hour on Sunday making your 7 dinners for the week. This is another 2 to 3 hours down the drain. Just on commutes, lunch, groceries, and meal prep, the working class example is spending an additional 15 hours to accomplish the same tasks per week, which is part of what's keeping them broke. At the average wage of a working class individual, this is literally over $23,000 over the course of a year, just in time and resources. That's insane. Think about that. You're literally spending the price of a car on being broke. every single year. Over the course of a 20-year career, this is almost $500,000 additional dollars you could have had. Now imagine putting that into savings over those 20 years. That's a lot of money that you're losing. It adds up so quickly. The last thing I want to touch on are fees. It's very common for people living paycheck to paycheck to overdraft on their bank accounts. These fees usually range from $25 to $35 on average, depending on who your bank is. This might not sound like a lot, but consider this. Every time you overdraft, you're losing about an hour of wages, assuming that you're making the average income. The average American has less than $10,000 in savings, which means a single car accident or unexpected medical expense can require them to take a payday loan. If you don't know, a payday loan is basically just a short loan with an extremely high interest rate. If you don't pay them back very quickly, say 2 weeks to a month, they can accrue so much interest that you just straight up cannot afford to pay. Interest rates on payday loans can number upwards of the 400% mark in the United States, which is completely legal for some reason. And it's not like the working class can just skip on their default payments like cars to cover an unexpected expense. Their landlord can kick them out of their apartment and their bank can repossess their car, taking away the only way to make money that they have. This throws them into a further downward spiral of their debt and into a continuing cycle. This is what I mean when I say it's expensive to be broke. The freelancer making the same wage as the working class example is saving over 23 grand in time per year and even more on amenities. Imagine being stuck in the cycle where you're making the same as the guy next to you but losing $30,000 a year to these things because you're irresponsible with your money and trapped in a job you hate. So what's the solution? Well, let's address these things one by one. First up, cost of living. I absolutely believe you should live with your parents as long as you can, or do free housing if your university has a dorm and you're going to college. I know not everyone has this ability to live with their parents after high school, and I'm extremely blessed to be allowed to live with my parents rent-free until the age of 20. But seriously, stay as long as you can. I almost completely screwed myself over at 16 by planning to move out, but that's a story for another time. Even if they charge you rent to stay, it will likely be far below market price. My parents are nice enough to charge, once I start paying rent, around $700 a month, which is about $1,200 below equivalent living standards in my area per month. This is over $14,000 a year I can save just from not moving out. This, combined with a high-yield savings account, could save me $60,000 in just a few years. Now let's take a look at the cars. The cost of a cheap new car can be around 40% more per month than a used car, which I admit isn't the best, but you need to be thinking in the long term. In a perfect world, you buy a new car and pay it off in 5 years, then own it for free for another 5 to 10 years. Obviously, this won't be the case for most, but it's an optimistic route. So what do I personally do about the car situation? I currently am financing a $15,000 used car for 5 years, assuming it has no further maintenance required. That puts the loan right around $300 every month. I know I'm kind of being a hypocrite with this, but I do genuinely think it's a very reliable vehicle. The car is a 2018, so it's already about halfway through its life cycle, but to be honest with you, this was one of my dream cars as a kid, so it is worth it to me to only get an estimated 7 years out of it at a maximum. I'm hoping to sell it for most of what I still owe on it in 2 years and upgrade to a newer version, or just a newer car, maybe a truck. But for now, that's what I have. Next up, we have groceries. I get that it's expensive to eat healthy, but if you want to talk about the future, then investing in your health will do better than any stock or crypto you can trade. You could have 1,000 problems, but as soon as you have a health problem, you only have one. I would recommend shopping at places like Costco or Sam's Club if your area has one. These big buy-in-bulk retail stores will easily make up the cost of your membership in savings. Prep 5 lunches and 5 dinners on Sunday for your work week, and you will have so much valuable time throughout the week to spend on whatever you want. It doesn't take that long, and no, eating the same thing every day for a week doesn't make you boring. You could even get crazy and meal prep all 7 breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. This could easily save you 6+ hours a week, but will take a lot out of you the day that you do it. Could take 1, 2, maybe 3 hours on Sunday and meal prep all 21 meals for the week. And lastly, fees. Fees are very easy to avoid. You can set up separate bank accounts for reoccurring charges so your regular never gets overdrafted, avoiding the fee entirely. This is genuinely so simple to avoid, and another way to do it is to just set your account to decline a transaction if it will overdraft you. This is what I have on my personal bank account, and it has never failed me. Fees are by far the easiest thing to cut down on. While it may be expensive to be broke, there are still plenty of ways to avoid the trap. I didn't even touch on things like pre-made meal services, splitting rent with friends, carpooling, and so many other options to save money. If you guys want a more in-depth deep dive on more things you can do to save in the future, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you to everyone who stuck around this long. If you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like and maybe subscribing. It's free and it helps out way more than you might think. You can always unsubscribe later if I get too annoying. My goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year. Hopefully you can help us get there. Thank you so much for watching. We'll chat again soon. Bye-bye.